Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, March 14th. LA Galaxy fall to the Seattle Sounders 3-2. Doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. I'm telling you, something's not right. That shouldn't have ended the way it did. It shouldn't have happened the way it did. All those things being said, the Galaxy lost. Same as they did last year in the same exact game. We're going to talk a whole bunch about the Seattle game. That's our main focus today. How bad was Julian Araujo? I don't know. We'll talk about that as well, because certainly I don't think he was good. Some surgery for one of the LA Galaxy players. We'll have a little insight into that. And of course, everything is leading to this Orlando game coming up on Saturday. Galaxy back at home to face off against Orlando City, and Pato is in the house. I don't think he's coming on this podcast, but he got one, so that's good. I'm glad we're there. To help me get through all this fun stuff we've got going on today, he is back. It is the Panda himself, Mr. Kevin Baxter. Kev, how's it going?
You know, I told you, you were talking about how the Galaxy were going to run the table, 34-0, 34 clean sheets. I told you it wasn't going to happen.
Man.
So we knew eventually they were going to stub their toe, but you coming out saying it didn't feel right. They haven't won in Seattle since Obama was president. I mean, it's been 2016, I think, the last time they won there. So it feels exactly the way it's supposed to feel. It feels exactly normal.
No, it was different. It was different this time. This was the result may have been expected just based off of historical results, but it was not expected in terms of how they played. I 100% believe that. By the way, I don't know if we're going to make this a thing for every show, Kevin, but Herbalife still in Russia. We just wanted to point that out on a regular basis, that the title sponsor for the LA Galaxy still in Russia. Still doing all that, all those Herbalife drinks, trying to cure all that ails with a protein shake, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's not working.
It certainly doesn't seem to be.
Yeah,
not
it's
yet.
not working. But
yeah.
you're going back to soccer, if we may,
please.
Greg Vanney said the same thing you did. It's like this is not right. We dominated the game and we should have won. He was as upset as I think maybe I've seen him in his brief.
Yeah. I was going to say, one of the things, Kevin, that I would like to point out about Greg Vanney, or any coach really, that has to talk to us after games or converse with us after a loss, and especially after this one, of all those I'm always amazed we don't get yelled at, right? I'm always amazed we're not in the crossfire for these guys, and sometimes we are, but with Greg, that hasn't been the case, and I don't expect it to be the case. But he comes in and sits down, and I'm like, you could just see it in his eyes. You're like, he is not a happy camper. And remember, last year, Kevin, I pointed this out. The Galaxy won their first two games last year, and then they went to Seattle and they lost 3-0. They got played off the field, and everybody said, hey, listen, this team is still developing under Greg Vanney. And Greg came on afterwards, and I'm sure was gracious and said, yeah, we didn't play well. We need to do a little bit better, blah, 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 all these things. Well, that graciousness with his team is no longer like, I'm the new coach here. That's gone, right? So I think he intimated at least a little bit that he was a little upset with the guys and maybe let them know how upset he was with them. So I don't think it was a happy place in the locker room.
No, well, one of the things you talk about is in every sport, there's generally, even in MLS, there's like a 10-minute cooling off period.
Yeah.
That's what it's actually called, a cooling
right.
off period. 10 minutes after the end of the game, before they open the clubhouse or the manager meets with us or whatever it is. And that's what that is for, so that they don't snap at us. I do remember one old Angels manager who, after every loss, the writers would go down in his office, and it was always the new kid that had to ask the first question, because after a loss, whatever the first question was, it was a stupid question.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they let him go. By the way, speaking of that, though, in the media meeting with the players and coaches, Major League Baseball reopened its clubhouses for the first time since the start of COVID this week in spring training in Arizona. I wonder if MLS is going to do that. That was a question that was immediately asked. When is MLS going to do that? MLS is tone deaf when it comes to the way it deals with the media. So I'm guessing it's not going to be happening soon.
Right.
But I do think that we lose a lot by not going in and getting to meet the players and talk to the players and have some one-on-ones and things like that.
In-person media availability this week. So Wednesday, the LA Galaxy have scheduled another in-person media availability. So you're able to go, you're able to, I will say, watch training. Listen, you can watch like the first 15 minutes when they're warming up, which is nothing. And then they go and do their tactical thing. And then you can talk to them afterwards. And sometimes, Kevin, in the past, the last 15 minutes would just be, hey, shoot around time, everybody have fun. Apparently with Greg, once training is over, everybody's done. And everybody goes inside. It's no more. Let's go. Everybody done. So you don't get that view, but you do get the personal touch in terms of standing in front of guys and being able to talk to guys. So there's a little movement there towards what we'll say is normalcy. But I thought it was big to see MLB announcing in person in the clubhouse. Right, you're allowed to be in there, and that can be used as a template for all the rest of it. So we'll see if we get back into in-person press conferences afterwards and in person in the locker room here. I would guess in the next maybe 6 months or so.
It really behooves the teams to string this out. For one reason, they don't like us in the dressing room, but for another reason, they want to keep those charter flights.
Hey,
if MLS says everything back to normal, COVID's gone, that means we're on Southwest to Denver in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Tim, by the way, gave us a $2 super chat. Thanks for that, Tim. Appreciate it. So that's it's been again. I was surprised. I thought Mark Delgado was a little more angry and snippy than I had expected him to be, which was fun to talk to afterwards. It's just I do like to see the how people communicate whenever clearly they're upset, right? Like and how that goes. And I can tell you that from at least my observation, it was Zoom. It was on Zoom. And by the way, that game felt so early, and this game on Saturday is going to feel so early. I was barely out of my PJs by the time I was on the Zoom call with everybody trying to find out what was going on after the game.
You went on the Zoom call with with Greg Vanney in your pajamas?
I had a nice shirt on. It was fine. My hair was a little ruffled, but hey, it is what it is. So we survived, and Greg answered my questions. Weren't a lot of people on the call though, Kevin. Not a lot of people on the call. And I
was in Mexico.
You were in Mexico. But I will say,
by the way, I left my passport in my shirt pocket, and it went through the washer and the dryer. Do you think it's going to work tomorrow? I got to go to Mexico again.
Yeah, I think so. I think you'd be okay. Usually those things are pretty durable. But
don't they have chips in them now?
They do, but most of the time they can get wet and shouldn't be an issue. If not, you'll just be in jail. It'll be fine. Yeah. I'm sure it will be. But no, I mean,
bake me a pupusa with a
file in it. I have seen sort of a drop off already this year in just how much coverage and how much attention the LA Galaxy are getting. It's something I've been watching, and it's something that has been steady over the last probably 12 months. So if you don't think that having poor results and poor play over the last 5 years has had an effect not just on attendance, I would also posture, at least at this point, that it has also had an effect on the media covering it and how that's going. So just keep an eye on that.
Also the personalities too. I mean, when Zlatan was here, every media, the New York Times came through, Washington Post, Sports Illustrated, everybody came through. Chicharito's great, Costa's great, but he's not Zlatan, and that has a little bit of an effect on it. But I want to go back to what you mentioned earlier about Mark Delgado.
Thank you.
Being a little bit snippy. I actually thought that he also tried to find the silver lining, which Greg Vanney was losing his mind over the fact that all 3 goals came on set pieces, and he should. Mark Delgado came in and said, look, there's a good and bad to it. The bad is we gave up 3 goals. We should never give up 3 goals on set pieces. The good is they all came on set pieces. Fixing a set piece defense, he said, is much simpler than trying to fix defense from the run of play. He goes, it's getting guys to trust one another, knowing where they should be, knowing that someone else is holding their position. He said that kind of stuff, it's got to come from us on the field, learning to trust one another, but it will come. And so he actually seemed to be as positive as you could be after that defensive effort.
I agree. And listen, it's not a defensive effort. Let's be very clear. The Galaxy from the run of play were perfectly fine. In fact, Seattle had ne'er a chance from the run of play.
Did you say nair?
I said nair. Yeah, that's right. We're throwing it back today.
Poet, and you didn't know it.
No, I did. I used the word on purpose and everything. But they didn't have many chances. This is not a game where Seattle was out there just passing the LA Galaxy to death.
How many shots did they have?
They had 4. No, they had 4. Yeah, because one of them was saved. One of them was saved, and the other 3 went in. One of those was from a penalty kick. One of those was from Julian Araujo kicking the ball into his own net, even though it went under Jordan Morris's leg. And one of those was from Sega Koulibaly playing patty cake in the center of the field with somebody while Nick DePuy forgot that he was supposed to mark somebody, and Julian Araujo kept everybody onside. So you can go back and look at this. These were not team breakdowns. These were not team defensive issues. Matt Doyle has a stat that he put out that the LA Galaxy last year were like 22nd in terms of defending transitions. And basically, a transition is a fast break, is a counterattack, is something where they're open up, where the Galaxy defense is opened up, and then they're allowed to sort of, get scored on. In the first 3 games, the LA Galaxy are the second best in the league in transition defense. And you can point to one guy, Mark Delgado, causing a ton of problems in there for teams trying to get out on the break and trying to do that. But it's a whole team thing as well. So I even said this and I was wrong. This was not a defensive breakdown game. This was not a bad defense. The defense played perfectly fine from the run of play. You want to talk about set piece defending, and you want to talk about the ability to stay within oneself and to understand the ramifications of the things that you're trying to do, then you can. Because if we're going to look at this game, which we are, if we're going to look at this game through any lens, it's that Julian Araujo probably had one of the worst games he's ever had for the LA Galaxy, hands down, period, end of. I've seen games where he's gone missing in action where that is much better than what happened in this game. He was
in too much action this time. By the way, we were talking before we came on about how, so the Galaxy opened the season with 2 clean sheets, and there were some defensive breakdowns that they got lucky, they got away with. So my feeling was the Galaxy defense was not as good as it was as the results of the first 2 games. They weren't clean sheet performances. I didn't think they probably were not as bad as the scoreline would indicate, as you're saying.
Yes.
They were great from the run of play. So I think it's a little bit of an even out process. They weren't as good as they were in the as they appeared to be in the 2 shutouts, and they weren't as bad as they appeared to be in this game. It's a little bit in between. The good thing, though, and Mark Delgado was right, those are things that could be fixed. But if you look at the offensive side, Chicharito again, he had 5. He's had 9 going into this game. He led the league with 9 shots, 5 on goal. And he gets another goal here, and then Costa gets, opens his account and gets a goal, and that's probably a confidence building thing for him, to get his confidence going. He's played all 3 games, which we didn't. You and I, if we'd had a bet on this, we've not had bet that he had played all 3 games. So offensively, those two guys getting going is a really good sign, I think.
LA Galaxy, 3rd game in a row, they refuse to put out a lineup graphic that actually shows anybody in a correct position. So when they do that, then MLS makes up their own and puts Efrain Alvarez as the second forward next to Chicharito. Now, I know. Yeah, of course not. Victor Vasquez, of course, injured in the last game and had to come out early. Efrain Alvarez started in his place.
Vasquez did play, though.
He did.
In the 60th minute or something, 67th or something.
Yeah, he came on in the second half. Efrain Alvarez missing in action for most of this game as well. Listen, I looked at his ratings in terms of where people had their ratings, and there's a lot of pluses for a guy who didn't really factor into a lot of the build-up or the plays that the LA Galaxy came away with. The first goal that the LA Galaxy scored, here's something, and again, another comparison. Let me compare this first, and then we can go back and talk about it a little bit. Here is the LA Galaxy through their first 3 games. Now, I kept track last year of if you scored first or allowed first, right? So in 3 games so far this season, the LA Galaxy have scored first in all 3 games. Okay, what say you about last year through the first 3 games? Let's see. The LA Galaxy scored first in their second game, but they allowed the first goals in their second and third games. Okay, so here is a team that already has improved a little bit in that way. And if you look at the LA Galaxy and how they have been scoring in recent years, Kevin, it's a lot of counterattack goals. It's a lot of, and I've said this, the Galaxy are a better counterattacking team than they are a possession-based team. Maybe not so true anymore. Because the very first goal the LA Galaxy come out of is a 13-pass sequence that leads to a Chicharito goal, and it absolutely was manufactured from the back to the front. They moved Seattle around the way that they wanted to. Ryan Rivellison, we talked about him possibly getting a little bit more forward, Kevin, and getting into the attack more. This was the game he was more in attack. This was the game where he was a guy who was able to float off of Mark Delgado and cause some problems. And if we go to our average spaces, right, our average positioning and the passing network that it shows where the average positioning is, there's three things that sort of came to mind. Number one is, how important is Mark Delgado? He is the hub of the wheel that the LA Galaxy are working on right now. He has a strong network to almost every single player around him on the field. And that, I think, is a huge, huge plus. So that was number one, Kevin, and then I'll go back to you. Number two is, if you look at Revellison's average position, it's further up the field than Delgado was. And so Ryan Rivellison getting forward more, getting in the attack more, combining out with Costa and with Chicha, and, a little bit more with Julian Araujo, who's pressed up there as well. So putting Rivellison in a more advanced attacking role in this as well. And then the third thing is, which people aren't going to like, is Kevin Cabral is the only person on this team right now, maybe Raheem Edwards, but he has to start from a much deeper position, and maybe Julian Araujo for the same reason, that has given the LA Galaxy any sort of width. All right, Douglas Costa, as much as I am impressed by him, is a come inside guy. He will get that ball, Kevin, and he will come inside. He's not going to be sprinting down the right-hand side on the line. So those are my three things that I sort of took from the average positioning and from this game. There's some things to improve on there, but Mark Delgado has been a little more eye-opening than I expected him to be. He's been everything that Greg Vanney sort of said he was going to become.
Well, I don't want to bury Julian Araujo just yet. But you talk a lot about him going to Europe. Based on this performance, the only way he's going to Europe is by buying a ticket. He's better than that, and that's the thing. It's like I guess that's why you can be a little more critical and a little more disappointed, because he's better than that. And with some guys, you say, well, he just didn't have a good game. He was really trying. He just doesn't have the talent. Julian Araujo has the talent, the smarts, the ability, all those things. So I'm sure he's even more upset with his performance than we are. And I wonder how much of the last three games, actually, that Tata Martino saw, and whether that's going to affect his call-up. I think Mexico probably needs him. They actually need Chicharito as well, but apparently he's not in the mix. They have some problems up front. Mexico does, going into these World Cup qualifiers. But going back to Mark Delgado, when the Galaxy got him, I think the response was sort of a collective sigh. It was like, okay, whatever. And then Greg told us, look, there's nobody better in MLS at bringing the ball up. He's going to be the guy to do it. Because we asked, without Jonathan, how's that's going to happen?
Right.
Oh, Mark Delgado's going to do it. And, he's going to be great. And we were like, yeah, okay, whatever. He is. And you know what? Greg Vanney knows him. He had him in Toronto. He knows him very well. Whether he wants to say, look, we just didn't use him well in Toronto, or he's gotten better since I left and I followed him, whatever it is, Greg was absolutely right so far on what Mark Delgado can do. And you know who he reminds me of? When Greg Vanney had those great teams in Toronto, and it wasn't all that long ago, we're talking 3 or 4 years ago, the 2017 team that won the treble. The guy who did what Mark Delgado did
was Mark Delgado? Oh, no. Okay, different guy.
It was Bradley, Michael Bradley. And the point is, Mark Delgado is now the Michael Bradley of this team, and that may sound a little forced, but the idea is Greg knows how he wants to play. He needs a guy to do that, to be that guy in the middle that sort of directs traffic and sends the passes out. Michael Bradley was great in the diamond midfield that they played in doing that, both for the U.S. and Toronto, and clearly, Greg wants to play that style, and Mark is going to be the guy that's going to do it for him.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch his whole play just in 3 games. And again, we're 3 games in. There's no definites here. But I was impressed with this Galaxy team. I mean, dominated the pace of the game, dominated the flow of the game, moved Seattle around where they wanted to put them on the most part. I'm disappointed the Galaxy offense still is not capitalizing on a lot of the chances they had. I went through and looked at all the chances that really you have the goal in the 6th minute, right? And then Morris scores in the 17th minute. There's 2 mistakes by Julian Araujo in that same play, by the way. If we're going to go chronological, the big mistake was leaving Jordan Morris by himself on the back post and having to catch up to him after a ball gets deflected off Nick DePuy. And listen, DePuy was already in the air trying to win that ball and trying to basically play off his guy, and he's trying not to get in the way of that ball, but there's not much he can do, so it goes off his hip. And it goes to Jordan Morris. Then Jordan Morris falls down trying to basically put that ball in the net, right? Jonathan Bond has him stopped. He's not going anywhere. The ball can't go anywhere. And then Araujo comes underneath it and tries to toe poke the ball away from Jordan Morris, except he's toe poking it at his own goal. And so Morris gets credit for the goal, and Bond can't see that and can't try to stop that. The play's over by the time Julian Araujo comes in and sort of taps it in. So those were mistakes there. You had a 35th minute header from Chicharito, I think, that got put right at Fry. That was a good scoring opportunity. So Chicha didn't score on one that he probably should have gone. You have the 45th plus minute penalty kick for Montero. And listen, Logan in the chat room says, hey, that foul was from the run of play, so you can't say the defense. Listen, that you can call that from the run of play. The goal is not scored from the run of play is the argument there. And if Araujo doesn't foul Montero, whose back is to the goal, who's not in a dangerous position, and who is covered by another player at the time as well, that's 2-on-1. If he doesn't bail Montero out there, that's not a goal. So it's not a goal from the run of play. The foul is from the run of play. But the Galaxy had that defensive set put in correctly when Araujo came in and made a rash challenge. You have to know where you are, and you have to understand the consequences. There's a risk reward to that. What is the risk in that particular case from the Seattle side? It's that Montero is going to turn around and suddenly fire off a cross that nobody's ready for. The Galaxy were back. They were in position. So the risk is that you're going to foul Montero, and you do, and you foul him in the box. And Greg was pointed about that. He goes, we give away a needless penalty kick. Imagine the LA Galaxy, Kevin, get into halftime at 1-1 instead of getting into half at 2-1. Imagine that the LA Galaxy had, after having conceded that 17th minute goal to Jordan Morris, show how in control they are of that game through that entire first half. And Seattle doesn't have a chance. And they're like, man, it's 1-1, but we're far from touching this game right now. Those are the things that could have changed and could have been a difference in terms of the mental mindset of where Seattle was and where the LA Galaxy were going into halftime at 1-1. So it's not just a penalty kick mistake where you give up a goal. It's when you give up a goal and what the result of that is.
Well, and there's some numbers to back up what you're talking about. The Galaxy, only one team in MLS, which is Columbus, had more shots than the Galaxy. Galaxy have 50 shots through 3 games. Only 15 of those are on target, so 30% of their shots are on target. But 50 shots, only one team better than them. Goals, they only have 5 goals.
5 goals.
Yeah, and I think 8 teams better than them in goals. So second in the league in shots, 8th in the league in goals. They're just not converting their opportunities. Of their 50 shots, only 15 of them have been on target. So but then when you get to the fact, okay, well, 15 of them are on target, they got 5 goals, so a third of the shots they put on target, they score. That's a pretty good number. But the 50 shots leading to 5 goals, no, that's not good. And when you look at, Atlanta Austin, I know that their schedule has been different. Austin has 10 goals already on 43 shots. Yeah, are they better than the Galaxy?
No, they're not. And that's the whole thing. But when we look at it so far right now, listen, there are no perfect teams in MLS right now, right? I think the top number of points right now is 7. It's 7 in the East and 7 in the West. That's one more than the Galaxy have. So really, when you look at it, you're not off the pace. The problem is the Galaxy easily could have had a perfect start through 3 games. This was not a difficult game for them. They played tough. They did the things they were supposed to do. Listen, they get a little lucky on Costa's goal, right? Obviously, he puts it in a good position, but it's a deflection off the wall that causes it to go in on the opposite side of probably where he was aiming. So those things happen when you have good set piece takers and good goal scorers. So it's not like you can knock Costa for that, but the Galaxy get 2 goals. They had plenty of time. Cabral hit the post in the 53rd. By the way, probably the best move. By the way,
it's 4 goals for the Galaxy, not 5. We said 5 a couple of times. 4 goals. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. It is 4. 2 and 2 is 4. Yeah, everybody's correcting us in the chat room too. Sorry. But in the 53rd minute, you saw one of the best moves Cabral has probably put in his time with the LA Galaxy. He drops his shoulder to the touchline. He pulls it back, and he hits a right-footed curler that goes around Stephen Fry. If that's 6 inches a little bit further left, Fry still can't touch it, and that's a goal for the LA Galaxy. So I like that. But honestly, I mean, Cabral was MIA for a lot of this as well. I'm going to put a lot of that on him. A lot of that on Cabral. I'm also going to put a lot of this on the LA Galaxy. He is one of the fastest players on the LA Galaxy, and they rarely play him in behind the defense. Greg Vanney mentioned it all last year. He's mentioned it through the first 2 games, and we didn't get to ask him about it in this third game. But there's a utilization issue. If you're going to have somebody like Cabral, who is going to stay on that left-hand side, who's going to stretch defenses, who's going to stretch the field, then you have to play him in behind the defense on occasion. That doesn't usually happen. And for his part, he has to start finishing chances. I love the move. I'm glad it was a great hit. And again, 6 inches to the left, he scores goal, and he could have been the hero in this game, right? That would have put the LA Galaxy up 3-2 in that particular case at that particular moment. That's a much different thing than going into the 70-something minute where, Arriaga is able to basically rise up between 3 LA Galaxy players, or certainly between 2, Koulibaly and Depew, and Julian Araujo keeps everybody on side. I am less apt to blame Julian Araujo for the last one, just because there's different things that go into that, and Nick Depew could have been in a better position, but that's one where you sit there and say the set piece defense has to be better, and it hasn't been good for a couple of years now. This is a weakness for the LA Galaxy. Well,
I think it was response to your question. Greg said, it was asked about his assessment of the game, and he said infuriating. That's the emotion at the end of it. We talked about how angry he was, and then he talked about the penalty kick. He said that he called it a nonsense penalty kick that they gave up for no reason, and talked about how that changed momentum, because at that point Morris had just, not recently, but had scored and was tied 1-1. They're getting ready to go in the locker room. It would have been 1-1 going in the locker room, and then they give up the penalty goal. And as Greg said, these things change momentum. And again, nonsense penalty kick. You or someone asked him, I don't remember if it was you, I think it was, asked him about Julian Araujo's performance.
Yes, that was me.
Yeah, after he had sort of kind of thrown Julian under the bus a little bit.
On the penalty kick, right? And so I was like, what did you think about Julian's performance later? Well, I don't know. Here's the thing. Greg said, I don't know. I'll have to look at the plays and get back to you, because I sort of detailed them.
He knew. He was trying not to just go crazy on the guy. I think he was very upset, and I think he diplomatically took a step back. I think he knew what he felt about Julian's play. He just didn't want to say it.
I don't know, but here's the thing is that, he said, you know what, you can ask me about it later, and I need to look at them and then I'll tell you. So it's one of those things where if I get a chance to, I'm going to ask again. It's like, hey, what did you see in that game for Julian Araujo? Are we being unfair to him? I think those are easy questions to ask, because he's allowed to defend his player if he wants to, or he can answer it very truthfully if he wants. He's like, yeah, that Julian knows what he did. He knows what he did wrong, and he knows he can never do it again, because he put us in horrible situations throughout this entire game, in 3 different situations, that type of thing.
You could arguably say he has been, if not the best, one of the best players in the Galaxy for the last 2 seasons now, this being the 3rd season, right? I mean, Pavone obviously in the COVID season was amazing, but Julian Araujo was really, really good, and Julian was probably the best player on the team last year. Despite Chicharito, because Chicharito was hurt for so long, and Julian carried the team. Do you think it's a case? He's a young kid though. He's still young. He's still developing. He's still getting better. He's still learning the job. Do you think it might be a case of he's kind of drank the Kool-Aid, and he really has heard about how great he is, and he thinks he is, and he's gotten a little cocky? Do you think he's lost a little bit of his edge? Do you think it's just a poor streak, like everyone goes through, poor streak once in a while, except for you, but most of us.
Well, except for me, of course. I'm going to go the opposite in terms of losing his edge, or has he lost focus or any of those things? I don't think that's it at all. I think that he is getting more and more of his ability to change games. He understands that. I think his body and his physicality allow him to change games, and he understands that. He's not a rookie anymore. He is a top quality MLS defender, and he knows that. And that's not an ego thing, right? That's not to say, oh well, he knows it, and so he's just not playing up to it. No, he has eyes on him now in terms of referees. He has eyes on him in terms of other teams are planning for him. There's other things that are happening. Things that maybe were a little bit easier to him are going to come a little bit harder, because there's more focus on him now, and his ability to influence a game because of these things has dramatically increased. And so I think he's made some of these mistakes before. I think he's done some of these things before, but he's never been in so much of the spotlight. And right now, with his Eltree with his possibility of being transferred out to Europe or somewhere else eventually. I think that is putting more eyes on his mistakes. He is under the spotlight now, and we watch him every single game, mostly because if he has a good game, the LA Galaxy have a good game. This is a perfect example. There were a lot of players on this LA Galaxy team who I thought played perfectly fine in this game. In fact, there were some good performances out of this game. Strangely enough, if you look at the ratings, Efrain Alvarez is one of the top performers in this. And to me, I'm like, that's when the ratings aren't always 100% on these, because I thought he was missing for a lot of this. But Julian Araujo and the entire LA Galaxy defense didn't. But when you look at the goals that they gave up, you would understand why they didn't get highly rated in this. But outside of those very small, and when we look time-wise, very small little windows, the LA Galaxy played this game very well. They are competitive with one of the best teams in the Western Conference, even if that team is not 100% right now.
Well, but they did blow up against Leon. I mean, Seattle was pretty hot coming into that game. I think you're probably right about Araujo, and when you look around the locker room, you see some personalities in there that can go to Julian when he's still 20, right? Can go to him. Douglas Costa can go to him and say, hey, you know what? I used to be all that in a bag of chips at 22. And here's what I learned. And here's what I figured out as I continued on my career. And here's what you need to focus on. Chicharito could talk to him about the pressure of playing for the Mexican national team and what that might do to his psyche and his confidence, and can help him a little bit with that. And then Sasha Kleshin he's the pro. He can talk about it all. And it does seem, I mean, I don't know Costa, whether he is a leader, a verbal leader, will he step and do that. But I think we can say that Chicharito definitely wants to do that. Victor Vasquez would, Sasha Kleshin. Hopefully those guys are going up to Julian and sort of telling him, look, shake it off. You've got an immense, amount of talent. Don't try to do everything. It's a long career. You're only 20. You've got to think about, you're going to be doing this till you're 35. The leadership is there, and I hope it's stepping up. I'm sure that in the case of Kleshin, it certainly is. Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. I feel like this is growing pains, and it's early season growing pains and all those things. I mean, people are saying, they need to bench Julian Araujo. No, you play him.
That's the worst thing to do.
Let him play out of it. Let him figure it out. He's a professional. He needs to figure this out. And, if he goes a string of games where he's not there, last year, Greg Vanney said that he reminded Julian Araujo that he needs to play defense first. And he goes, hey, whatever you think you need to do on offense, that's fine. You'll get there. He goes, don't worry about the offense part, worry about the defensive part. And for me, there needs to be a little adjustment in that again, which is Greg Vanney going to Julian Araujo, sitting him down and saying, you're a defender. You play right back. I know in the modern game, we ask you to get up and back on the field and to contribute as part of the offense. I'm not worried about the offense. I'm worried about the defense. And you can never have an effect on a game like you did in that Seattle game. And so often we call it a team game. And so often, we will say, this is a team loss. It's a team loss. Absolutely. But when you look on the negative effects that Julian Araujo had on this game, it is significant. And it's not something you can just say, again, not trying to beat up on the guy, not trying to say this happens. These are part of the growing pains. He is relatively young, and he has never been in a position with as much pressure as he has right now. I expect that all of these things, and by the way, he's never been stronger than he's been right now. And he's never been more in shape than he has been right now. And he's never had the skills at a higher level than he ever has before right now. As the guys get towards their peak, those things increase every single year. Julian Araujo is a better player than he was last year. He has to figure out how to control all of those, almost like new superpowers, Kevin. It's like, look how far I can shoot this web, and it's like, I can shoot it farther now because I've been practicing more and stuff like you have to be used to this. You have to get used to it. I think right now, maybe Julian Araujo's, his muscles are a little bit too big for a shirt, and that's not a knock on him. It's just a development program. I'm sitting here as a pudgy 40-year-old trying to even think about how in shape some of these guys are. Julian Araujo has all the tools. I'm not overly concerned. I am more concerned though, and I'm growing more concerned about the offense. I don't know how many chances you need to get, Kevin, in order to score goals. But the LA Galaxy are getting some, but they're not finishing a lot of these great chances.
Again, only one team in the league has more shots, but they're just not getting them necessarily. They're not dangerous shots. By the way, last thing on Julian before we go, if he does get called up for the Mexican team this week, he has a real good, because they needed him in the last set of qualifiers. He has a real good shot of starting against the U.S. in Azteca in a qualifier that is must win for both teams. either team can qualify for the World Cup if a number of things happen, but they need to win that game in Azteca first. So talk about Julian stepping up to the big leagues in a hurry. I don't know if in this region of the world it gets much bigger than that.
Yeah, Mike Gray was actually in the chat room was saying, get to Julian dealing with juggling pressure of LA Galaxy and Mexico. I mean, the amount of pressure that he's getting put under for the LA Galaxy is more than he's ever had, certainly. But when you look at the stage that he is now put upon to play for Mexico, in the possibility that he could be playing at Azteca in a must-win. I mean, these are the biggest of big games in CONCACAF. They don't get bigger. And so, I don't know that that's affecting him. I know people would want me to say, oh, well, it's obviously affecting him. I have no idea if it's affecting him. I can tell you what I see on the field whenever he plays for the LA Galaxy, and that he's not all there in terms of focus. It's understanding the repercussions of the things that you do. Right. And that's not there right now. Certainly hitting 3 people in the face in the first 2 games and then coming out and having a third game dud like this shows that there's just a little bit lacking in some area. And I'm not here to pinpoint it, but I think that playing for Mexico, Kevin, you talked about it, and I know you said it. You said, that there are a lot of people who said, going to play for Mexico is the absolute pressure cooker, and that it can be a nightmare for players.
Especially Mexican-American players. I've had some Mexican-American players tell me that no matter what he does, he's always an American. And he'll always be an American in Mexico. And on this side of the border, he's always going to be a Mexican. And he can never make both sides happy. And any mistake that he makes for the Mexican national team is going to be because of his Americanness. And he doesn't belong there. And he's taking the spot from a Mexican player, no matter how good he gets. There were some people that were really surprised that he decided to go play for Mexico because of that pressure. But he made that decision, and now he's on the biggest stage he'll ever be on. And one mistake could send the U.S. to the World Cup, and one great play could send Mexico. I mean, it's pretty high stakes for a guy who's 20 years old and still trying to find his way. And as you said, the 3 face slaps in the first 2 games. Again, such a question. Somebody's coming up to him and saying, dude, dial it back a little bit. Let's not try to win MLS Cup in the first month.
It was funny. Matthew in our chat room says, Julian is pressing a little bit too much. It seems almost like he feels like he has to do a lot. 100%. Greg Vanney even touches on this. Whenever he played his first game for Mexico, whenever he got on the field and played, Greg Vanney was like, yeah, I saw him. He had a lot of energy out there, and he was like trying to do a lot, right? That was Greg Vanney's way of saying he wished he would calm down a little bit. You're seeing that with the Galaxy. He is trying to do maybe a little too much.
Do you think that you talked about a lot in the preseason, and we were grasping at straws. We didn't really know what was going on behind the scenes, but remember how he didn't play a lot in the preseason, and Leerdam and Raheem Edwards were getting a lot of time on the field, and Julian wasn't. We talked about is he had a favor, what's going on. Now that's beginning to loom a little bit larger to me. Was there something else going on? Did Greg actually at some point say you need to earn your spot? I doubt that, but was there some of that, like, oh my God, maybe forget Mexico, maybe my role on this team is in danger, and I better go out and dominate all these games. And again, you're not going to win MLS Cup in the first 3 weeks of the season.
No, you're not, and it's certainly not. There's still plenty of time for things to sort of gel here for the Galaxy. I did, what was it, 64, almost 64% possession, 14-8 in terms of shots. The Galaxy dominated. This is one of those. They're winning on the stats. 560 total passes to 320. A passing accuracy of close to 90% to close to 80% for the Sounders. 6 corners, 16 crosses. Let's see, no offside calls, by the way. I would expect, by the way, if you have somebody like Kevin Cabral, who's always trying to beat the back line, that you would be offside more. I'm disappointed that there aren't 1 or 2 of these, because it means that they're not even trying. Cabral's on the hot seat. I don't want to give him a pass for all this. I think he's been better than the stats probably show, but the guy needs to score goals. He is an attacking player. That's what you have him on there. You have Chicharito who can score goals. Okay, great. Everybody knew he could score goals. He could score 25 goals this season, and he could probably do it without breaking a sweat. He's a very good finisher. He can do that. Douglas Costa. So how many goals do you think Costa's going to get this year? 10, 11, 12? Maybe something like that. There needs to be another guy, Kevin. Who's going to be the other guy? There's nobody else on this roster right now where I'm sitting there going, they're going to get double-digit goals. And for me, it has to be Cabral. And listen, for as much as people want to play Grandsir in the same spot and have him start, I'm saying, show me when Grandsir has scored goals. Show me when he has done the same thing. Cabral is creating chances from the places that he has, so I understand why Greg is going to put him out there. But you need something from those two guys. If those two guys can give you a combined 12 goals or 15 goals, right? Like in that area, the Galaxy will be just fine. But find some offense from Cabral, find something. And Chicharito, by the way, needs to actually put some of those crosses that Cabral is putting in fairly good positions away.
Well, they do. I mean, it's obvious they keep looking for Chicharito every time down. Even on that goal, it was a great goal, but you could almost make the argument that there was one pass too many. The last one to Chicharito, he wound up getting the goal, so no harm, no foul. But you're right about him scoring 25 goals. Right now, he's on pace for 22.6 goals this season.
Ooh, look at him! I was looking at. I am paying attention to sort of where he stands up in goals per game in terms of how many. Zlatan I think finished averaged 1.07 goals per game whenever he scored 30 for the LA Galaxy, right? And the whole deal. And so at one point last season, Chicha was outpacing Zlatan on that. Now that came back to earth. It always does. But we were watching it. So I do keep a track of that. He's not there yet. I'm not ready to bring up the graph right now. And so that's one of the things. Listen, Edwards, again, if we're talking about guys who played well, Raheem Edwards had a good game. Probably the most pressure he's been under in all three of these games. Edwards has 3 assists in 3 games. I don't think any of us expected him to be as much as integral to the LA Galaxy's attack and defense as he has been, but playing on both sides of the ball. Right now, the best signing the LA Galaxy made in the offseason is Raheem Edwards, which again just seems like it's a crazy talk. But he has been very good, and he seems well suited for what Greg Vanney's asking him.
And tell us why he's now got a starting spot pretty much locked up.
We did. I think we hinted at it a little bit. There was surgery on the Jorge Villafana front. Greg Vanney said earlier last week, he said that Villafana was going to have a scope of some sort, and they were going to take a look. Well, I would imagine I can usually tell the difference between a scope and actual 100% surgery. So it looks like they actually did something. Whether that was exploratory and they said, hey, if we see something, we're going to fix it. Then that could have been the case. But he says the struggle has been real, didn't want surgery, but these past few months have been some of the hardest I've ever had. This is a minor setback, but with the help of my family, doctors, and the team, I know I will come back stronger. And he says, Alexa, play When Bones Are Good. I'm pretty sure mine is going to go off in the background, by the way, because I just said it. So
it's a nightmare for Sueño. By the way, I hope his wife picked out those that pink comforter.
I like that pink. I would pick that out for myself. I don't know why you have things against pink. Pink is a nice, soft, warm color, Kevin, and it's soothing, especially at night, like in a bed. You want soothing, calm colors.
When you got your leg in a cast.
Right? So
this probably means a lot more playing time for Leerdam as well, if in fact Araujo goes away with Mexico. Although technically they won't miss any games. Araujo should be able to play this weekend, and if he goes away, would be back in time to play. Probably wouldn't if he plays a lot for Mexico. But in any case, we talked a lot about the expectation that Julian Araujo would be called up to Mexico quite a bit, and that they needed to have some depth at outside back on both sides. Now it looks like that depth maybe is being tested a little bit. If Araujo goes and Jorge Villafana can't play, all of a sudden you're down to your 2 starting backs, outside backs, and I don't know that there's much behind them.
Yeah. Kelvin Leerdam will fill in for Araujo if he has to be there. And then you have Raheem Edwards on the left-hand side. Listen, Leerdam has been waiting for a chance to play. Somebody asked who was the backup at Edwards' side. It's probably Leerdam right now. Just in terms of the ability to play there and do those things. I think that there is the ability, if in a really big bind, Kevin, let's say, you needed more depth at like left back than you could possibly slide Leerdam over there, and perhaps Zavaleta can go play on the right back side of things. It gets touchy whenever you start losing more, but I mean, there is some depth there. It's going to be used, so I don't think that there's anything to panic from. But the bottom line is that they're down a guy, and if Julian Araujo's off with Mexico and there would be missing games for any reason, then you could see Leerdam playing and Edwards playing with not really a backup for either of those positions.
I think Dan Steres played it outside back once this year already. I'm just
Houston.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I don't know if I want to be on that Houston team.
Yeah, no, but Dan Steres will never
not get your heart.
My heart. Yeah.
Just tried to go over something. Here's something. And obviously I have my charts and fun things. LA Galaxy right now through 3 games. I said this after the second game. I don't remember it being this high, like ever, whenever it comes to the designated players. Since I've been tracking, even through the first 3 games, I don't remember it being like this high. Right now, the LA Galaxy designated players have played 87.2% of the total available minutes. So there have been 810 total minutes, and the LA Galaxy's designated players have played 706 of those 810, with Chicharito playing all 90 in all 3 games. Something to watch, Kevin. That's going to be something to keep an eye on. We know
that's going to come down. We know, we've heard Greg say that Costa's going to get a lot of rest, and I think he intimated that Chicharito would as well. So these numbers are going to fall at some point. And like you said, Grant Sear's going to have to step up. Joveljic, those guys are going to be called on sooner rather than later.
Ronald, by the way, nailed it. Did you hear Giassi Zardes is being shopped, Kevin?
Yes.
We
need a right back.
There you go. You need the right back. Ronald was all over that one. That's a good one. So that's where it is. Listen, Farai Mutatu is a great. People are asking about Farai Mutatu. I don't know. I asked. I've been waiting. I was told that he would play down with Galaxy 2. I imagine that he's going to be a first team signing. He has showed up on the official roster page for the LA Galaxy, so I always find that interesting. We'll see if that continues to go. I continue to ask. We'll see if they actually.
I have not seen an official announcement that he signed, though.
No, there has been
happened?
none. There has been none. No, I would let everybody, because then I would say, yeah, he signed, and I would tell everybody where. Yeah.
What do you suspect that is? That he's talking to clubs in other countries? I mean, he's technically a free agent.
I think the LA Galaxy would own his rights within MLS.
Right,
so he can't go to anywhere, but he could go play somewhere else if he wanted to. I don't think that's the case. I think that they're just being slow on announcing exactly where he's going to be. By the way, Herb gave us a $19.96, 1996 super chat, and Herb says, "Hey Josh, hope the baby is doing better." Yeah, Jake had an ear infection, and I got 2 hours of sleep on Thursday night, Friday. It was a good time. Recorded the show, was like woohoo. Basically, my weekend starts after I record on Thursday, and then he had a fever of like 102, and so that dude did not sleep. He slept in our bed, which means nobody slept. So yeah, it was fun. He's fine. He's a young one, so they bounce right back. But he's in preschool too, Kevin, which means he's basically working at the germ factory.
Anyone who has not had a kid will not understand this, but the piercing cry of a kid with a ear infection, there is no other sound that's ever been made by a human.
Poor dude.
It's incredible. It shatters your bones. It really does.
Herb goes on to say, "Hey Kevin," he goes, "Can't make the live show, but wanted to say I've missed a few shows, and suddenly I get the Dan Stairs, Dave Romney treat." Yeah, we were kicking Herb out the curb pretty fast there. Somebody else came on and wanted to be my sugar daddy, so I was like, "Oh, see you later, Herb." You know that's goes. No, Herb, you're always special here. So anytime you want to stop by, we appreciate it. So that was one of the charts.
Is that Herb from Russia?
No, we don't have Herb from Russia. Okay. Was that a thing? Am I missing? Okay. I like to also pay attention to how much players get paid, like per game, and just some like per goal, and we can sort of sit there and say that, oh look, I even screwed up the chart. That's always good to know. But anyway, Javier Hernandez, by the way, if he played no more games, would have been paid so far $2 million per game, right? Because you get $6 million whether you play any games or all, but he's played 3, so divide his 6 by 3 and you get $2 million per game, which means he's getting paid I think $1,961 per minute so far, which is just fun to keep an eye on, fun to keep track of.
And you list, I've seen it a couple of places on these charts that you bring up, you list Costa repeatedly at $5 million. Is that, have you confirmed that?
No,
that's you're just going on what? Yeah. Okay.
We call that a wag.
We still don't know if it's, we don't know if it's 5 million. If we don't know if it's 5 million,
5.9. It could be 5.9. I have no idea.
And well, is it 5 million for a year, or is it 5 million for the 18 months that he's going to be with the Galaxy? We don't know any of that.
No idea. No, we don't know. And we'll get it eventually whenever they release the salaries, which should come up.
Oh no, the Galaxy will tell us.
I'm sure they will. They'll just let us go ahead and do that. By the way, if anybody doesn't know what a wag is, that's not the wives and girlfriends. Whenever you're taking a guess and you call it a wag, that's a wild A guess, right? You get wild A guess. Yes. Okay, good. I'm glad. Trying to keep it PG for all the kiddos who listen. LA Galaxy through 3 games with 6 points. I think it's the 11th best start in club history. It gets a lot better, by the way, if they like win the next game. Suddenly it starts to get into like the 6th best start the LA Galaxy have had. At one point, they would have been the first team since 2010 to win their first 3 games. 2010 won the first 3. 1996 won the first 3, but they didn't have draws back then, so that's not really, who cares?
Well, but go back to that, because it is the second best start since. It is the best start, equal the best start since 2012. So accent the positive.
Second best start since 2012, yes, but you really have to scratch and dig in order to make that stat make sense, because they also had 6 points in 2016. They also had 6 points in 2019. They also had 6 points last year. So there's a lot of ties in there in order for you to make that happen.
Yeah, but again, accenting the positive. They beat the reigning MLS champs at home, in a tough game. Then they made a long cross the country road trip, played in front of the largest crowd in MLS history on the road, and won that game. So
yeah,
it's not a bad start.
No, it's a good start. It's perfectly fine. It's a perfectly fine start. That sounds like so unexciting. Yeah. Perfectly fine. How'd you like your gift, honey? It was fine. Okay.
It's fine.
It's fine. The LA Galaxy right now averaging 2 points per game, which is good. Just want to point out that in 2010 and 2011, the LA Galaxy finished their entire season with a 1.97 points per game total. Just in case you were wondering how good those years were.
Hey, have you seen there's a Dave Bigham sighting?
Was he up in Portland? Because that's where
he is
at,
on
right?
the bench at Portland. Yeah, he's backup goalkeeper at Portland.
That's exciting or something. Nobody really cares about the goals right now. Just a reminder, the LA Galaxy scored 50 goals last year, allowed 54. If we project out what they have done so far, Kevin, we can project out over 34 games and said the LA Galaxy will score 45.3 goals, which is 5 goals less basically than they scored last year. But however, they will only have given up 34 goals. Again, last year they gave up 54 goals. So if they keep this current trend, which I don't expect them to, but if they do, they would be 20 goals less than they were last year in terms of the defense.
And if they keep up this pace, they'll have 23 clean sheets, and they would then have 11 games where they give up 3 goals.
I imagine that's probably like a supporter shield like winning if you have 23 clean sheets, right? I mean, that's probably the case. If we look at our points per month, the LA Galaxy finished February obviously perfect with 3.0 points per game per month in there. Right now in March, they are at 1.5. That's fine. 1 win, 1 loss, all those fun things. And if we look at the standings, the LA Galaxy sort of returning to back where they were after the first game. So nobody's going to be shocked and dismayed by any of the things that have gone through. If you look at the Western Conference, it's LAFC and Real Salt Lake. Salt Lake had a crazy game in the snow, so you should probably go watch that. They played their second game against Seattle in the hail, after the hail, in like a 2-hour and 15-minute delay, and then they played this game in the snow against New England, I believe, and ended up winning that game. And so they are at 7 points, LAFC at 7 points, and then the 6-point group is Austin, Colorado, and the LA Galaxy.
Well, LAFC played in gale force winds and torrential rain in Fort Lauderdale, and if you don't understand the word torrential rain in relation to South Florida, you're missing something, because when they say torrential rain in South Florida, they're not kidding around. It's a shower. By the way, you mentioned the New England game, that the New England players saying that we shouldn't have played in that weather. It was too bad. They haven't seen their goalkeeper this year because.
Are you going to put out this conspiracy theory? I've been looking at this.
That's true?
I don't know. I don't think it's true. I don't. Okay. But I also think. Go ahead. You can tell people. I want you to tell people. It's interesting enough to at least talk about.
Well, he played in the game against Honduras in Minnesota when it was -3, and Luis Lopez, the goalkeeper for Honduras, came out at halftime because he had hypothermia. Well, now they're talking about the U.S. goalkeeper actually got frostbite. I don't think he made a save. Maybe he made one save, but I do remember him running back and forth across the field throughout the game, just trying to stay warm.
Right.
And hasn't played since that game, I don't believe. And
people are saying
that he may have got frostbite on his right foot.
Yeah,
that
frostbite
seems like
is
a long time to be out though for frostbite, right?
Apparently, because I was in a group chat that was talking about this today. Apparently, frostbite will, if it's mild frostbite, it will repair itself in about 6 months.
Wow,
yes.
So he could have been out a month.
It makes sense that he might be. I'm just saying. I looked into a little bit, and there were some people who were throwing some actual facts at that, and they didn't seem to stick. So, hey, is what it is. But by the way, somebody did point out, they're like, oh, well, this is why MLS shouldn't start when it doesn't. It should just go to the regular calendar, because then you can have a break. If you did a winter break, which would basically be about the same length as the MLS offseason is right now, you would still have these games in this time frame. And so there would still be snow. You're not going to get away from it. That's one of those things. It's like you're not going to get away. Yeah, if it gets warmer and it pushes further up, you can play more games in quote unquote warmer climates. But I don't think that's the solution.
Well, we've always known the Bundesliga takes a winter break about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks sometimes. Some of the leagues take just like a Christmas break. Obviously, until recent events happened, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the Ukrainian Premier League or the Russian Premier League. Both those leagues take like 14 weeks off because it's just so bad in the winter
cold
in those countries. I mean, that's like an entire off season. Could you imagine you're out for 14 weeks and you got to come back and get ready, and it's in the middle of the season. So they play half their games before and half their games after. That's crazy.
If we look at the Eastern Conference, by the way, Columbus in first place in the Eastern Conference, 7 points. Philadelphia, 7 points. New York Red Bulls, 6 points. DC United, 6 points. Atlanta, 6 points. Chicago, 5. New York City, 4. That's sort of where you sit. By the way, you want to talk about a top-heavy conference again already. Montreal, Charlotte, Miami. Cincinnati just beat Orlando. I'm not sure how to take that, but I have to go back and watch the highlights for that before I say anything crazy on that. But you're looking.
Arena's New England Revolution. Wow.
New England. Oh yeah, 9th place. Can you believe it? I'm sure they'll stay there. So anyway, just the Eastern Conference again is probably going to be something the Western Conference beats up on. So expect whenever Western Conference teams play Eastern Conference teams, unless it's outside of those top 4 or 5, that the Western Conference should prevail on that.
You mean like this weekend?
Whenever the LA Galaxy take on the number 8 Orlando City, right there. Yeah, but Orlando I think is still a good team. So I'm not. Again, we're 3 games in. Supporters Shield right now is Columbus, LAFC, Philadelphia, Salt Lake, Austin, New York, Colorado, DC, and LA Galaxy, and at the 9th place overall. Again, if you are in the top 13, Kevin, you are in the better side of the 50% of the league. So keep that in mind as you sort of try to stay in the better side of things for the entire year, all the way through the last game, LA Galaxy. So we'll see how that goes down.
So why is Columbus trying to trade Giassi Zardes if they're the best team in the league? Wouldn't you want to keep, again, we talked about it earlier, wouldn't you want to keep that together?
He's in the last year of his contract, from what I heard. And because of that, they think that he has, and I think he's a designated player contract as well. So he's a DP, so that means he has a lot of control over kind of where he goes, what he does on all sorts of things. So if they aren't planning on keeping him past into this next contract, then they should probably look to move him now, right? Because you don't want to let the contract expire at the end of the year. So now, summertime, move them, get something for it, and be able to move on. But yeah, I think Zardes.
It's a gamble. I mean, from what I know, Giassi's a pretty good guy in the locker room, and he has a big personality. I don't think you want to mess that up. I mean, yes, I understand all the things you're saying, but the goal here is to win MLS Cup, and you're the best team in the league 3 games in, and you're on pace for a Supporters Shield. Supposedly, maybe not want to mess with that too much.
Yeah. You would think, but also, I mean, if you're standing still, you're getting worse, right? It's one of those. You have to constantly be moving. Maybe they don't need a backup right back anymore, so they can just move on from Giassi. So anyway, it's going to be a really fun sort of weekend. I think this weekend is going to be great. I had the graphic up. I'll put it up again. LA Galaxy versus Orlando City coming up, 12:30 p.m. TV time. It's Univision and TUDN, I believe, is what the TV is. But the kickoff isn't until 12:50, so closer to 1. The kickoff.
Yeah, so there's 20-minute pupusa time in there.
That's right, and the kickoff for last week's game was 12:55 against Seattle, and that was a Fox and Fox Deportes. So whenever you see that, you can sort of say this is 5 minutes less, so you don't have a 25-minute lead in to that as well. So
will the pupusa truck be there?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Are you going to be there? You're going to go to this game?
I will not be there. I will be in Mexico City.
See, that's what do you care if the pupusa truck is going to be there or not? I'm not. You're just going to complain? I'm going to make sure I get
27,000 of my closest personal friends will be at that game, and I want them all to have pupusas. Forks optional.
I understand. Coming up should be, let's see, I think on Thursday's show, I'm scheduled right now to talk to the LA Galaxy 2 head coach, Yohan Dame, on tomorrow night. And talk to him about the LA Galaxy 2. LA Galaxy 2 lost their game. They played against San Diego Loyal.
Heartbreaker, though. A Jalen Neal own goal in the 97th minute.
Yeah, well, they were also playing down a man because Remy Cabral pulled a boneheaded play and took somebody out. I think with 10 or 15 minutes, or maybe what is even more. I saw the replay of the play, so boneheaded play on that. So they kind of put themselves in a bad position even as it was. But as you said, late in the game, and a Jalen Neal own goal.
What position does Remy Cabral play? I always thought Remy Cabral was a cognac.
I think he plays in the midfield, if I remember correctly. At least where his positioning was, I think that's where
he should be a cognac. Isn't that a great name for like a cocktail or something?
Yeah, I agree.
Have a Remy.
Yeah, it works. A Remy Cabral, and then an RC Cola. That's his new drink. He's RC, RC Cola. We're bringing it back. It should be a lot of fun. So anyway, that's sort of where we sit with the LA Galaxy. That's sort of where we sit this week. The LA Galaxy scheduled to have in-person media on Wednesday. We'll see. I may be able to sneak out and actually get to that one. So I will effort, as they say.
Who do you want to talk to?
You know what? I'm really boring right now. The only person who's really that interesting to talk to for me would be Greg Vanney, because he's the guy who has all the answers that I need, which is like injuries and what happened to Jorge Villafana and what did you see on all those Araujo plays? Because don't you think for a second, if I'm not there, I'm not asking Greg Vanney about Julian Araujo again and what he saw.
How about whether Mark Delgado wants to be Mark or Marky?
Nobody's going to ask him that question because everybody calls him Mark now, except for people who have known him since he was like in PJs.
Well, I knew him when he played at Chivas, and he was Marky then.
So you could call him Marky if you wanted to. If you wanted to be that guy, you could totally do that.
Punch me.
He should. Lots of people should. I'm actually surprised you have remained punchless so far in your reporting career. I'd like to take a swing at you a couple of times, but you're in a different room, so that doesn't work for me.
But then when he's like guarding a guy and the guy slips away from him, you could say he lost his mark, but you can't say he lost his Marky.
No. You lost his Marky. You just have to put a lot more Y's in it, and you don't sound as smart. So, but we should have a show coming up on Thursday. We'll be talking to LA Galaxy 2 head coach. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then of course we're going to get you ready for the game against Orlando, where Pato is coming into the Dignity Health Sports Park. So,
hey, did you like watching Albert Rusnick this weekend? The man who got away.
I thought he was totally ineffective.
Okay.
I mean, listen, there was nobody on that Seattle team. Maybe I'm trying to think. I mean, Montero was fairly ineffective, and he got one of the highest rated plays in that game. Jordan Morris, I thought was Jordan Morris. He's always dangerous, so that's fine. But tell me who created anything. Tell me where that team, the team that's supposed to be best in the West, the Seattle Sounders, tell me where that team was.
But you look at that team, you had the lineup chart up earlier, and even the guys that weren't there, that team is just loaded. And you have to think, yes, it wasn't their best game, and it's not been their best start. They did play well against Leon in CONCACAF Champions League. But it's, like they say, at the end of the season, the numbers on the back of the baseball card are going to be where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And this team looks really loaded.
They do. They just haven't figured it out yet. They're not there.
I mean, it's just like Manchester City didn't score against Crystal Palace. What's that all about? I mean, all that offensive firepower, and they can't get one past Crystal Palace?
The nerve of those guys, I'll tell you. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, or are we good?
No, we were done like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know.
We just kept talking.
It's fine. I can't. I think everybody maybe expected us to bash on like, Julian Araujo a little bit more.
Look, he's a young guy, and the Galaxy is not. They're not as good as they were in the first two games. They're not as bad as they were this time. Julian Araujo is way better than he played, and he's going to be better. And we only hurt the ones we love.
This is a better LA Galaxy team than last year, hands down. 100%. Yeah. It's a better team. They just have to show it every game. I think the consistency will be there.
A guy as smart as Greg Vanney is going to look at last year and say, this is what we were missing. Oh my gosh, if we had just had this here, we would have been much better. And he was able to go and sort of fix those things that he needed to fix around the edges. So, I mean, it's 3 games into the season, and they're 2-1-0. It's you're not going to panic now. And if Julian Araujo is your biggest problem, you got a really good team.
You're fine. Victor Vasquez, I'm imagining, returns to a starting role. I think that Derek Williams may also come back into a starting role as well. Maybe Sega or Nick Depew there take a leave of absence towards the bench for a little bit. I think Greg Vanney was probably looking for an opportunity to put Williams back into the starting, but he wasn't going to do it again in a defense where they had back-to-back shutouts, right? That's like,
and also I think Turf, a guy coming off an injury, first came back on Turf.
He played in Charlotte. Williams played like the last, 10, 15 minutes against Charlotte, so that was Turf. So there goes your theory again. I like shooting holes in your theory. That's basically what this entire show is. I think we'll keep that up. So, all right. LA Galaxy playing against Orlando City coming up on Saturday, again at 12:30 p.m. TV time, 12:50 kickoff time. TUDN and Univision, I believe, is where you can find that. So
Seattle's turf is harder. I'm right. I'm still right.
You're still good job. Good save. All right. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, it's at KBaxter11. Head on over to LATimes.com for all of Kevin's wonderful articles there covering a lot of the Liga MX action. Recently, he was down in Mexico again this weekend. Just got back. And bore his arms tired. So we'll keep an eye on that as the LA Times continues that coverage. Of course, the LA Galaxy coming up on this weekend, and I'll see everybody there. So if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcasts. All right, head on over cornerofthegalaxy.com. That's where you can find our videos, our podcasts, our articles, all that fun stuff. Cornerofthegalaxy.com. All right, for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.